Hey, happy Wednesday. Okay, so today it is a Work It Out Wednesday, and you are going to have a math problem to figure out for me. So I'm going to pull it closer so that you can see it a little better. It says, Andrew is stuck at home. Thanks, coronavirus. He decided to make some mini sandwiches. So he makes 3 sandwiches and cuts them each into 4 pieces. How many pieces does he have? So you have to figure out if you're going, which operation you're going to use. Are you going to use addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? And then solve the problem, give me the answer, and you can send it to my email or Class Dojo or find me on Facebook and DM me there. Okay. So yesterday we read about Miggery Sow, and she's the little girl that we learned she's the little girl who was sold by her father for some cigarettes, a hen, and a red tablecloth. And he's the man that is now down in the cellar with the rats. And he is the one that Roscuro was told to torture or, make miserable. And so now his daughter is at the castle as well, because the man who bought her, who we learned that she had to refer to as uncle, the soldiers took her away from him. So when Roscuro fell into the queen's bowl of soup and the queen died, and then the king made soup, he outlawed it. He made it illegal to have or to eat or to make or anything like that. And so the soldiers had to go around to all of the houses in the land of Dor and collect all of the kettles, the soup spoons, and the bowls. And so when he gets to Uncle's house, he says, I need your kettles, your soup spoons, and your bowls. You can no longer eat soup. It's illegal. And Uncle says, no, you can't do that. What are we going to eat? And the soldier says, I don't know, eat cake. Well, they can't afford cake, so they can't eat that. Anyway, and he somehow mentions to the soldier that he has a little girl who works for him. And he said, no, you can't own a little girl. You can't own somebody else. That is also illegal. So either you hand over the girl, the kettle, the soup spoons, and the bowls, or you are going to come with me and you're going to go down in the dungeon or into, the prison type thing down in the basement. And so, of course, he hands over the little girl. He hands over Miggery Sow and all the soup, spoons, bowls, and kettles. So as they are headed back to the castle, Miggery realizes that she is now going to the castle where the little princess lives. And the soldier tells her, you are no longer going to be a slave, you are going to be a paid servant. We'll see how that goes for her. But I want to talk about, how do you think she's feeling? How do you think Mig is feeling right now? Because every time she's ever said she wants something, or she hopes for something, or she wishes for something, everyone has always told her, who asked you? Why do you think you get to choose that? Or why do you think you get to hope for something, or wish for something, or want something? And, if somebody said that to you, how would you feel? And then her father sells her. And now, she's being taken to a castle. So she's just being, moved around so many times and being told, hey, quit scratching the couch. Sorry, the cat. Anyway, so now she's being moved back to the castle and going to be a paid servant. So this is somehow going to tie into Roscuro and how she is going to help him in his quest to torture the princess. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to try to get through the rest of part 3, and I just don't want to read for, I don't want this to be too long of a video. So we'll see where we get. I may be able to get to book 4, the next part. Okay, chapter 29, start with the kersey and finish with the thread. Miggery Sow's luck continued. On her first day on the job as a castle servant, she was sent to deliver a spool of red thread to the princess. Mind, said the head of the serving staff, a Jor woman named Louise. She is royalty, so you must make sure you curtsy. Well, how's that? Shouted Mig. You must curtsy, shouted Louise. Gore, said Mig. Yes'm. She took the spool of thread from Louise and made her way up the golden stairs to the princess's room, talking to herself as she went. Here I am, off to see the princess. Me, Miggery Sow, seeing the princess up close and personal-like. And first off, I must curtsy because she is the royalty. At the door of the princess's room, Mig had a sudden crisis of confidence. She stood a moment, clutching the spool of thread and muttering to herself. Now, how did that go? She said. Give the princess the thread and then a curtsy. No. First the curtsy, then the red thread. That's it. Gore, that's right. That's the order. Start with the curtsy, end with the thread. She knocked on the princess's door. Enter, said the pea. Mig, hearing nothing, knocked again. Remember, Mig got clouts or hits on the ear from Uncle, and that has made it to where she cannot hear very well. Enter, said the pea. And Mig, still hearing nothing, knocked yet again. Maybe, she said to herself, the princess ain't to home. But then the door was flung wide, and there was the princess herself, staring right at Miggery Sow. Gore, said Mig, her mouth hanging wide open. Well, hello, said the pea. Are you the new serving maid? Have you brought me my thread? Curtsy I must, shouted Mig. She gathered her skirts, dropped the spool of thread, stuck a foot out and stepped on the spool, rocked back and forth for what seemed like quite a long time, both to the watching princess and the rocking Mig, and finally fell to the floor with a Miggish thud. Whoopsie, said Miggery Sow. The pea couldn't help but laugh. That's all right, she said to Mig, shaking her head. It's the spirit of things that counts. How's that? Shouted Mig. It's the spirit of things that counts, shouted Pea. Oh, thank you, miss, said Mig. She got slowly to her feet, and she looked at the princess. She looked down at the floor. First the curtsy, then the thread, Mig muttered. Pardon, said the pea. Gore, said Mig, the thread. She dropped to her hands and knees to locate the spool of thread. When she found it, she stood back up and offered it to the pea. I brought you your thread, didn't I? Lovely, said the princess as she took the thread from Mig. Thank you so much. I cannot seem to hold on to a spool of red thread. Every one I have disappears somehow. Are you making a thing? Asked Mig, squinting at the cloth on the pea's hand. I sure am. I'm making a history of the world. Well, my world, said the pea, and tapestry. See, here is my father, the king, and he is playing the guitar because that is something he loves to do, and he does it quite well. And here's my mother, the queen, and she is eating soup because she loved soup. Soup? Gore! That's against the law. Yes, said the princess. My father outlawed it because my mother died while she was eating it. Your ma's dead? Yes, said the pea. She died just last month. She bit her bottom lip to stop it from trembling. Ain't that the thing, said Mig. My ma's dead too. Well, how old were you when she died? Bold was I, said Mig, taking a step back away from the princess. I'm sorry then. No. How old? How old were you? Not but 6, said Mig. I'm sorry, said the princess. She gave Mig a quick, deep look of sympathy. How old are you? 12 years. So am I, said the princess. We're the same age. What is your name? She shouted. Miggery Sow, but most just call me Mig. And I saw you once before, princess. You passed by me on a little white horse. On my birthday it was, and I was in the field with my uncle's sheep, and it was sunset time. Did I wave to you? Asked the princess. Did I wave? Shouted the pea. Yes, nodded Mig. But you didn't wave back, said the princess. I did, said Mig. You just didn't see. Someday I will sit on a little white horse and wear a crown and wave. Someday, said Mig when she put a hand up to touch her left ear, I will be a princess too. Really? Said the pea, and she gave Mig another quick, deep look, but said nothing else. When Mig finally made her way back down the golden stairs, Louise was waiting for you. How long, she roared, did it take you to deliver a spool of thread to the princess? Too long? Guessed Mig. That's right, said Louise, and she gave Mig a good clout to the ear. You are not destined to be one of our star servants. That is already abundantly clear. No, ma'am, said Mig. That's all right, though, because I aim to be a princess. You? A princess? Don't make me laugh. This, reader, was a little joke on Louisa's part, as she was not a person who laughed, ever, not even at a notion as ridiculous as Miggery Sow becoming a princess. So right back here is a picture of Mig slipping on that spool of thread and going to fall. Okay, chapter 30. To the dungeon. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Mig had enough to eat, and eat she did. She quickly became plump and then plumper still, and she grew rounder and bigger, only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths. In the spirit of honesty, then, I must inform you that Mig was the tiniest bit lazy, and too, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That is, she was a bit slow-witted. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job that Miggery Sow could effectively perform. In quick succession, Mig failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess. As seamstress, she sewed the cloak of the riding master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, sent to clean a room, she stood, open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestries, exclaiming over and over again, "Gore, ain't it pretty? Gore, ain't it something then?" and did no cleaning at all. And while Mig was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat in the dungeon below was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? You bet. Just as Mig's inability to perform any job well had its consequences. For finally, as a last resort, Louise sent Mig to the kitchen, where Cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In Cook's kitchen, Mig dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly on the king's pork chop moments before it was to be served to him. "Of all the good-for-nothings I have encountered," shouted the cook, "surely you are the worst, the most cauliflower-eared, the most good-for-nothingest. There's only one place left for you, the dungeon." "Eh?" said Mig, cupping her hand around her ear. "You're being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noonday meal. That will be your duty from now on." Reader, you must know that the mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I tell you that humans feared it too? Certainly it was never far from their thoughts. In the warm months, a foul odor rose from the dark depths and permeated the whole of the castle. And in the still, cold nights of winter, horrible howls issued from the dark place as if the castle itself were weeping and moaning. "It is only the wind," the people of the castle assured each other. "Nothing but the wind." Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon bearing the jailer's meal, only to return, white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting that they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had only gone down the stairs and into the dungeon and had never been seen or heard from again. Do you believe that this will be Mig's fate? Gore, I hope not. What kind of story would that be without Mig? "Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool," shouted Cook. "This is what you do. You take the tray of food down the dungeon and you wait for the old man to eat the food, and then you bring the tray back up. Do you think you can manage that?" "Aye, I reckon so," said Mig. "I take the old man the tray and he eats what's on it and I bring back the tray. Empty it would be then. I bring the empty tray back up from the deep downs." "That's right," said Cook. "Simple. It seems simple, doesn't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to bungle it." "Eh?" said Mig. "Nothing," said the cook. "Good luck to you. You'll be needing it." She watched as Mig descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereaux had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Mig had a light on the tray with the food. There was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at the cook and smiled. "That cauliflower-eared, good-for-nothing fool," said Cook, shaking her head. "What's to become of someone who goes into the dungeon smiling, I ask you?" Well, reader, for the answer to Cook's question, you must read on. And here is a picture of Miggery Sow now. Okay. Chapter 31. A Song in the Dark. The terrible foul odor of the dungeon did not bother Mig. Perhaps that is because sometimes when Uncle was giving her a good clout to the ear, he missed his mark and delivered a good clout to Mig's nose instead. This happened often enough that it interrupted the proper workings of Mig's olfactory senses. And so it was that the overwhelming stench of despair and loneliness and evil was not at all discernible to her, and she went happily down the twistings and turnings and stairs. "Gord," she shouted, "it's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, it is, Mig," she answered herself, "but if I was a princess, I'd be so glittery light-like there wouldn't be a place in this world that was dark to me." At this point, Miggery Sow broke out into a little song that went something like this. "I ain't the Princess P, but someday I will be. The P-ha-he, someday I will be." Mig, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer, but more of a bellower, really. But in her little song, there was, to the rightly tuned ear, a certain kind of music. And as Mig went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat, wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing a spoon on his head. "Ah, yes, yes," whispered the rat, "a lovely song, just the song I've been waiting to hear." And Roscuro quietly fell in step beside Miggery Sow. At the bottom of the stairs, Mig shouted out into the darkness, "Gord's me, Miggery Sow. Most calls me Mig, delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deep Downs." There was no response. The dungeon was quiet, but it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous way. It was quiet in the way of small, frightening sounds. There was the snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from around a darkened corner there came a low moan of someone in pain. And then, too, there was a noise of the rats going about their business, their sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long tails dragging behind them through the blood and muck. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you would certainly hear all of these disturbing and ominous sounds. If I were standing in the dungeon, I would hear these sounds. If we were standing together in the dungeon, we would hear these sounds, and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other in our fear. But what did Miggery Sow hear? That's right, absolutely nothing. And she was not afraid at all, not in the least. So she held the tray up higher, and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. "Gore," said Mig, "look at them things. I never imagined there would be so many spoons in the whole wide world." "There's more in this world than anyone could imagine," said a booming voice from the darkness. "True, true," whispered Roscuro. "The old jailer speaks true." "Gore," said Mig, "who said that?" And she turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. Chapter 32. Beware of the Rats. The candlelight on Mig's tray revealed Gregory limping towards her, the thick rope tied around his ankle and his hands outstretched. "You," Gregory presumes, "have brought the food for the jailer." "Gore," said Mig, and she took a step backwards. "Give it here," said Gregory, and he took the tray from Mig and sat down on an overturned kettle that had rolled free from the tower. He balanced the tray on his knees and stared at the covered plate. "Gregory assumes that today again there is no soup." "Eh?" said Mig. "Soup!" shouted Gregory. "Illegal!" shouted Mig back. "Most foolish," muttered Gregory as he lifted the cover off the plate. "Too foolish to be born, a world without soup." He picked up a drumstick and put the whole of it in his mouth and chewed and swallowed. "Here," said Mig, staring hard at him, "you forgot the bones." "Not forgotten, chewed." "Gore," said Mig, staring at Gregory with respect, "you eat the bones? You are most ferocious." Gregory ate another piece of chicken, a wing, bones and all, and then another, and Mig watched him admiringly. "Some day," she said, moving suddenly to tell this man her deepest wish, "I will be a princess." At this pronouncement, Roscuro, who was still at Mig's side, did a small, deliberate jig of joy. In the light of the one candle, his dancing shadow was large and fearsome indeed. "Gregory sees you," Gregory said to the rat's shadow. Roscuro seized his dance, and he moved to hide beneath Mig's skirts. "Eh?" shouted Mig. "What's that?" "Nothing," said Gregory. "So you aim to be a princess. Well, everyone has a foolish dream. Gregory, for instance, dreams of a world where soup is legal, and that rat, Gregory is sure, has some foolish dream too." "If you only knew," whispered Roscuro. "What?" shouted Mig. Gregory said nothing more. Instead, he reached into his pocket and then held his napkin up to his face and sneezed into it. Once, twice, 3 times. "Bless you," shouted Mig. "Bless you, bless you." "Back to the world of light," Gregory whispered, and then he balled the napkin up and placed it on the tray. "Gregory is done," he said, and then he held the tray out to Mig. "Done, are you? Then the tray goes back upstairs. Cook says it must. You take the tray to the deep downs, you wait for the old man to eat, and then you bring the tray back. Them's my instructions." "Did they instruct you too to beware of the rats?" "The what?" "The rats." "What about 'em?" "Beware of them," shouted Gregory. "Right," said Mig. "Beware of the rats." Roscuro, hidden beneath Mig's skirts, rubbed his front paws together. "Warn her all you like, old man," he whispered. "My hour has arrived. The time is now, and your rope must break. No nibbling this time, rather a serious chew that will break it in 2. Yes, it is all coming clear. Revenge is at hand." Chapter 33. A Rat Who Knows Her Name. Mig had climbed the dungeon stairs and was preparing to open the door to the kitchen when the rat spoke to her. "May I detain you for a moment?" Mig looked to her left and then her right. "Down here," said Roscuro. Mig looked at the floor. "Gore," she said, "but you're a rat, ain't you? And didn't old man warn me of such? Beware of the rats," he said. She held the tray up high so the light from the candle shone directly at Roscuro and the golden spoon on his head and the blood-red cloak around his neck. "Oh, there's no need to panic, none at all," said Roscuro. And he talked, and he reached behind his back, and using the handle, he raised the soup spoon off his head, much in the manner of a man lifting his hat to a lady. "Gore," said Mig, "a rat with manners." "Yes," said Roscuro. "How do you do?" "My papa had some cloth much like yours, Mr. Rat," said Mig, "red like that. He traded me for it." "Ha!" said Roscuro, and he smiled a large, knowingly smile. "Oh, did he really? It's a terrible story, a tragic story." Reader, if you will pardon me, we must pause for a moment to consider a great and unusual thing, a pretentious thing, that great, unusual, pretentious thing that is this. Roscuro's voice was pitched perfectly to make its way through the tortuous path of Mig's broken-down cauliflowered ears. That is to say, dear reader, Miggery Sow heard, perfect and true, every single word the rat Roscuro uttered. "You have known your share of tragedy," said Roscuro to Mig. "Perhaps it is time for you to make the acquaintance of triumph and glory." "Triumph," said Mig. "Glory?" "Allow me to introduce myself," said Roscuro. "I am Chiaroscuro. Friends call me Roscuro, and your name is Miggery Sow. And is it true, is it not, that most people call you simply Mig?" "Ain't that the thing?" shouted Mig. "A rat who knows my name." "Miss Miggery, my dear, I do not want to appear too forward so early in our acquaintance, but may I inquire, am I right in ascertaining that you have aspirations?" So here is a picture of Mig talking to Roscuro. And you can see right there is her ear. "What do you mean, aspirations?" shouted Mig. "Oh, Miss Miggery, there is no need to shout, none at all. As you can hear me, so I can hear you. We two are perfectly suited each to each other." Roscuro smiled again, displaying a mouthful of sharp yellow teeth. "Aspirations, my dear, are those things that would make a serving girl wish to be a princess." "Gore," agreed Mig, "a princess is exactly what I want to be." "There is, my dear, a way to make that happen. I believe that there is a way to make your dream come true." "You mean that I could be the Princess P?" "Yes, Your Highness," said Roscuro, and he swept the spoon off his head and bowed deeply at the waist. "Yes, your most royal Princess P." "Gore," said Mig, "may I tell you my plan? May I illustrate for you how we can make your dream of becoming a princess a reality?" "Yes," said Mig, "yes." "It begins," said Roscuro, "with yours truly and the chewing of a rope." Mig held the tray with one small candle burning bright, and she listened as the rat went on, speaking directly to the wish in her heart. So passionately did Roscuro speak, and so intently did the serving girl listen, that neither noticed as the napkin on the tray moved, nor did they hear the small mouse-like noises of disbelief and outrage that issued from the napkin as Roscuro went on unfolding, step by step, his diabolical plan to bring the princess to darkness. And that is the end of book 3. Who do you think is in the napkin? Okay, so that is all for today. Make sure you send me the answer to our problem back here, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.